Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Exploring the Paranormal. I am super excited to be here again today. As always, I have an amazing guest with lots of stories to share with you, so make sure you guys are ready with all of your questions. And if you are watching the replay, don't hesitate to put those questions in the comments. I will make sure that when I see them, I pass them on to my guest to get her to answer those as well. So before we continue on with any more than that, I am going to bring my guest in and welcome her to the show.
Hi.
So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Cool. So for those of you who don't know you, do you mind introducing yourself and kind of sharing maybe some information about what got you interested in the paranormal?
Absolutely. My name is Jennifer Newman. I am a spiritual evidential psychic medium. And what that means is I try to give the most information that I can from your loved one on the other side. And the way I got into this, I've always been psychic, heard spirit talking to me ever since I was a young child. But it was actually when my mother got sick, her cancer had returned and she was terminal. And I finally said, you know what? I have to be all in. I need to make sure that my mother is okay when she gets to the other side. After she passed, I started giving free readings to people who were grieving the loss of a loved one. And I got a lot of fulfillment out of that, helping others. It also helped heal a part of me. And one day I was telling my husband about it, and he said, you know, I think you would be really good at that. And I said, what? Never in my life did I ever plan on being a psychic. I didn't want to be, you know, one of those people that I watched on TV. I grew up fascinated by psychics and mediums and paranormal. And when he said that, it gave me a really big boost of confidence. And I thought, you know what, if I can help one person, if I can help that mother who has lost her child, then that's what I want to do. So I had a conversation with God. I'm very spiritual. I'm Catholic. And I told God, I said, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to get the people to me, but as long as I get the messages and you supply the people that they go with, I'll do it. And it was so funny because I had no idea how it would happen. I made a Facebook page and started giving readings and people showed up.
It's like the baseball comment, if you build it, they will come.
Exactly. That's and to this day, you know, 4 years later almost, I'm like, I still can't believe that I'm here, that I'm doing this.
Right. Yeah. And that's why we're in this field, is to help others. And, you know, like you said, even if one person can get help, that's one more person that's helped that didn't have the help before.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we were talking before the show about some experiences, and I know a lot of the viewers that I have love to hear the different spooky stories, but do you mind talking about growing up and some of those experiences that you had growing up?
Yes. So as a child, almost ever since I can remember, probably 4 or 5 years old, I've heard my name being called. Always sounded like my mother. When I was a kid, I would hear Jennifer, and I would yell back, what? I did live in a house that was built in the 1860s. And I always thought that had something to do with it. It was the house. Mm-hmm. You know, my house was haunted. And the older I got, I realized it wasn't the house. It wasn't my grandma's house. It wasn't the antique store. It was me. Mm-hmm. Spirit would follow me around. I was an only child, and I would set things out to play with, walk off, come back, and they would be gone. They'd be at the bottom of the pile. They would just be gone. I would have things underneath my bed all the time. And that was one of the things that really scared me. I grew up in the era of Poltergeist and somehow watched the show. And if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you watch it. But like, a child gets pulled under the bed. I've spent almost all my life being scared that something was going to drag me under the bed. To this day, I still, every once in a while, it's that fear. It's kind of like being out in the ocean and you think, oh my gosh, a shark. for me, it's, oh my gosh, something that I can't see, something that I don't know is going to get me.
Mhm.
And I'm at the age now where I'm like, you know what? If I need to know everything that's out there, everything that I can learn while I'm on this side.
Mhm.
And that's really been the driving force. I want to understand what's going on around me.
Right. So, out of the hauntings that you had at your home, do you have any idea of who they might have been, or just kind of spirits in the dark type of thing?
I know that the one spirit that I always heard sounded just like my mom.
Hmm.
When I was older, I actually was on a phone call in the middle of the night to a boy, and the phone kept going dead, just like in the movies. Never had that
Hmm.
happen in my life, except for this one time the phone kept going dead. He'd call me back. And then I heard a voice from the other side, and it sounded like my mom. And she said, get off the phone and go to bed. Well, my mom and dad were in the room on the other side sleeping in their bedroom.
Hmm.
So I never figured out quite who it was, but it was always someone. They mimicked my mother. It sounded exactly like her. Um, and I never really delved into trying to figure out who it was. I think, of course, they were looking out for me.
Hmm.
My grandma also owned an antique shop, and we had a house full of antiques. So I do think that probably a lot of those things had attachments, and I'm sure spirits were brought to the home that way.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. Terry's joining us. Thank you for Terry, and hello.
Hi.
Yep. But yeah, and then cycling back to the psychic work that you do, what would you say would be the most memorable case that you've worked on?
There's so many.
I always say it's like picking your favorite child.
Sometimes I also work on relationship cases. People will sometimes send me pictures of potential suitors, matches, and I'll explain who they are and what I see. I had one client, and they were asking about a relationship, and I told them what I saw. I said, no, absolutely not. It's a no-go. And they did not like that. And I'm not here to make anything up. I just tell you what I see, what I hear, what I
Mhm.
know. And I said, but I do feel like you're going to run into them in the next few days. You're going to see them. And they said, no, it's not possible. They live how many ever hours away. And I said, okay, well, I still feel that way. You're going to run into them. So just be prepared.
Mhm.
And I got a call a couple of days later. Oh my gosh. They wanted a reading right then. I was at a festival. They said, oh my gosh, I walked out from breakfast in the city, and here they are walking with another person down the sidewalk, and ran into them. And I said, I told you. I mean, that was, to me, it's all about trust. And if you have
Mhm.
a reading with a psychic medium, you need to trust them. You need to trust, just because they don't tell you necessarily what you want to hear. You need to
Mhm.
trust in the process. You need to be open to it. And the client couldn't believe that I saw that. And I said, absolutely not going to get together at this time, but you will run into them. And when they let me know, they're like, oh my gosh, we're walking down the street. I said, yes. To me, that was really cool, because I was validated. Not that the client, they didn't like that, but sometimes we don't like what lies in store for us, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And you had brought up trusting the psychic that you're working with. Now, how do you go about finding a trustworthy psychic? Because there are so many out there.
There are so many. And myself, before I ever gave readings, I used to be a psychic junkie, right? I would
Mhm.
call psychics, mediums, um, usually psychics. And I think you have to do your homework.
Mhm.
Follow them on Facebook, watch them read if they do that on their page. Read reviews if you can. Google them. See if
Mhm.
they have, if they have a one picture and no followers, then that's probably maybe not the right person for you. I would
Right.
make sure that you do your homework. Referrals. I love referrals. I get those frequently, and I appreciate them, because people who
Mhm.
trust me are telling their friends about me.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I always say referrals are the best type of compliment you can get.
Yes.
And Pam says intuition is a great way to figure that out. And then She had also mentioned, good afternoon, ladies. Great conversation here. I also had an instance, except my call came through Messenger and I was told I was getting a phone call. Our daughter passed away 10 years ago and I had twice gotten a call on Messenger and it says unknown caller and it's like dead air. There's nothing there when I answer it.
Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah. And then Pamela says, good afternoon, ladies. So thank you all for joining us. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We will get to them before the show is over. So when it comes to haunted locations, I know I don't tune any of my psychic abilities at all, just because I prefer not to, because I'm the one who needs to know 100% of what I'm going into. I do, my due diligence as far as research, and you can't do that as a psychic. So how do you go into an investigation or start your research?
So usually I love history. I love old homes, hotels, things like that. I love cemeteries. So what I do is just walk around and observe. I try not to connect unless it's, a neon flashing light, but I want to see what I get exactly without connecting. And then I will walk around, then I'll start, pick things up, write things down. I'm so excited because I actually am in a paranormal class. So I'm going to be using some equipment and I'm excited to see where that leads. But I love the ghost tours. I love, and mainly whenever you go on a ghost tour or a haunted tour, I love the history. And I love to hear the story about the people who were once there. I think that that's fascinating and it's great to remember them.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about this field is we're able to retell history through, the stories of the spirits that we get, whether it's an EVP or, a psychic reading from one of the psychics we have with us. It's always nice to, hear from the spirits that actually lived during that time. And I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice.
And I think when you can back up, like if you have, a K2 meter or a REM pod goes off and then you get an EVP that you can match up with something that the psychic has said. And then you can do your research and kind of piece everything together. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's perfect. So out of all the locations you've been to, I know this is a hard question that I have trouble answering. What is your favorite location?
Hands down, the Myrtles Plantation. Absolutely. Visited there probably about 13 years ago. And this is way before I ever, thought of doing readings. My family, actually, we were on a road trip and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to go to the Myrtles. And that's when I didn't have internet on my phone. I just had to call and ask for a room. And we got there and the house was amazing. Right from the start, we had so many different things happen up all night. My husband slept through it, but my mom was in one room and we were in another. And my mom and I both got woken up all throughout the night, things crashing. My mother she thought it was my husband walking outside her room talking, and she'd come knock on the door. And I'm like, nope, he's asleep. She's like, no, I saw him. I looked out the window. The room on the other side of her was empty. And she's like, where's that man and that woman and that little boy? And I'm like, the window is open. The curtains are open. There's no one, unless they left in the middle of the night. I never saw anyone. She ended up coming about 4 a.m. and sleeping in a chair in my room.
Okay.
I can't wait to go back. I've just asked my best friend, I'm like, will y'all go to the Myrtles? Let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah, and I have one favorite location, but it's always sad because I can't release it because they made us sign a non-disclosure. But we investigated there so many times. It was like where we would have our team meetings and we would investigate monthly and we'd train, but they wanted a non-disclosure because they didn't want anyone to know they were haunted.
Yeah. And some want to report that and some don't. And that's okay.
Yep. And that's what we said. We're like, well, as long as you let us, come in and train and practice, and it gave their employees answers. So it was kind of nice. We were able to help them in that aspect as well. But yeah, that's my all-time favorite location, but I can't really name. Pamela wants to know what your paranormal group is called.
I don't have a paranormal group.
You don't have a paranormal group? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure who that's directed to, but I'll answer it as well. And mine is Exploration Paranormal. We were based in Vegas, but we are now based in Southwest Florida. So, and we actually have a lot of things coming up in the next year, including some different events and filming. So we'll be busy with all of that. So I may have to reschedule my show. And then Pam wants to know, would you have any advice as I go forward in my growth spiritually?
I think that first of all, you need to figure out what it is that you want to do. Do you want to do psychic development? Are you interested in talking to the other side? I believe that we are all psychic. We all have that ability. Some
Mhm.
people need to do classes, and it's like a muscle. You have to exercise it, right?
Mhm.
All mediums are psychic, but that's also something that I think that if you have that ability, you need to take classes and develop that. And really, what is your end goal? Do you want to help people? Do you want to just talk to your loved ones? What is it that you want to do, and what are your expectations? What are you going to do with it after you learn,
Mhm.
how to give readings? Or I hope I answered that correctly.
Yep. And then, because you actually, Pamela had mentioned that she is a developing medium and she has class tonight.
Awesome. So once you find a teacher that you are comfortable with, and I have many
Mhm.
teachers, I have to say that, and I learned something different from every single one of them. But I think practice, practice, practice. Get into a practice circle. If your teacher, I'm sure your
Mhm.
class probably has a practice circle. In the beginning, especially, practice as much as you can, and not necessarily with friends.
And I'm actually going to have to reach out to you because I'm going to do a quick plug for my Wednesday night show. Wednesday night, I co-host Ghost Education 101 with Philip Wyatt. He is a psychic medium in Georgia. And oh my goodness, we've been doing it 3+ years now. And we actually have a panel roundtable discussion with a group of psychics the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So, and they're all going to be giving advice on what to do, how to do it, how to handle client cases. And Jennifer, we have a spot on that panel. If you would be interested, I can send you the link for that one as well. But it's
Awesome.
Wednesday from 9 to 11 Eastern at night.
That sounds awesome.
So, yep,
Absolutely.
perfect. I'll add you to that list because I'm not a psychic. So I'm just going to be in the background running the show, and I'm going to let Philip run that one.
Great. I
So,
look
so
forward to it.
you can have my spot on the screen. Okay. And Pamela says she does it to help people. Pam should go through plenty of circles to practice, and that's what she does.
Absolutely. That is a great start.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. We are more than happy to answer them, whether it's for myself or for my guest, Jennifer. And one question I had before we started, you had mentioned you love all things paranormal. Any experience with cryptids?
I absolutely love cryptids. I've always been into Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, anything like that. I do not have any experience with them, though.
Mm-hmm.
They live in my heart. I absolutely believe that there are other things that we cannot see, we cannot prove. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like psychic mediums, right? We always can't prove what we get. I don't know
Right.
that it's those actual creatures, but I believe there's absolutely tons of things that we don't know about yet, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing them. I need proof. It's like X-Files is my all-time favorite show. I'm a huge
Right.
X-Files fan, so the truth is out there. I want to
Mm-hmm.
believe.
Yeah. You need to come to Florida and go to the Skunk Ape Research Facility
Yes.
down here in the Everglades.
Yes, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I on my newest book, I had written a whole chapter on it because it's about roadside attractions and this
Mhm.
whole, I mean, the history there, the government actually shut them down
Wow.
and wouldn't let them conduct research. So now it's just a museum of the research they had prior to being shut down.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, so it's
I
like, why are they shutting it down?
That's how I feel about UFOs.
Right.
Um, when I was younger, my friend and I, we were driving around and we saw this light and it was getting bigger and bigger. And I said, "Hey, Courtney," I said, "look at this light out here. It's getting closer and closer." And I have to tell you, I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but I stopped, I got out, I got my camera. This was in the 90s, took a
Mm-hmm.
picture, followed it all the way back to town, stopped off at the house, told my mama, I said, "Hey, I'm going to be late. We're chasing a UFO." And she said, "What are you going to do when you catch it?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know. We're going to figure it out." So I sent the film in. This was, back in the day, I had to send the film in and my film got lost.
Oh, of course it did.
There you go. That's my UFO encounter.
Um, yeah, it's interesting because even back when I was just graduated college, I had worked at Ritz Camera. I mean, now I'm dating myself because that company's not even around anymore. and and we would get so many people who would come in, and this was when I was just researching the paranormal on my own and not really doing it full time or anything like that. And they'd be like, "Oh my God, you got to check out these ghosts and stuff like that." And I'd be looking at it, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm a photographer, so I know that that's not a ghost because you have this, 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 and this." But it's like even back then, it was so hard to tell people, what you have is not not a
Yeah.
ghost.
And like it was just a big white light, but it was moving closer, and then it actually turned around and then went, and it was just weird. It was we live out in the country, so it was in the
Mhm.
country. It was a weird spot.
Yeah.
And who knows, but I wanted my picture so I could see what it was, and I
Mhm.
never got the opportunity. So I still to this day I'm like, York photo, I sent my film in, and where is it?
It's gonna be one of those things. One of these days, it's gonna pop up, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, let's get these to her and try to
40
track her
years
down."
40 years later.
Uh, so, because one thing I always used to do when living in Vegas, we were, southwest of Area 51.
Mhm.
And so I was always watching the sky that way but it's so hard because you have airplanes flying into
Yeah.
McCarran over and over and over. But I always told myself if I see something shoot straight up in the air and then take off, then it's a UFO. But nothing ever like that ever happened.
One of my best friends, actually, when we were in school, he told me, like I said, I live out in the country, but you can see our property on the other side. And he said they were at a friend's house, and he said they all saw it. It was
Mhm.
this, UFO. I don't know exactly what it looked like, but he explained it to me. And he said it was just, hovering, and then it tilted like 45 degrees and went straight down. And he said it would have been right over here on your property.
Mhm.
And that was his UFO story. So I don't know. And my nephew had one too. He told his mom he saw a something in the sky, and he said it looked like a red Dorito. That's what he told her. So it's triangular shaped. So who knows?
And that's possible because it would have been triangle shape, and depending on how the sunlight was hitting it, or the lights that might have been on it, or even heat if it was coming into the atmosphere, who knows what their technology. I mean, I know we're using our experiences with physics, but who knows what their technology does with physics.
Yes.
So exactly. And so just real quick, I'm looking over. Thank you everyone for commenting. I know Pam is talking about how she currently does readings on a page. And she also is doing a podcast on the 15th about grief and depression. So that's actually tomorrow we have a class on paranormal trauma as well. So yeah, it sounds interesting. Pam, reach out to me on Facebook at Exploring the Paranormal Show. Would love to talk to you about some of the stuff that you're doing. And then Pamela says your mother came up with a great question there about what you're going to do if you catch the UFO.
Yes. I was young.
Um, and then Larry is joining us. I know Larry, he's been on my different shows a couple different times, and I need to get over to Vero Beach and investigate with you, Larry, one of these days. It'll happen, I promise. But yeah, Larry, I've known him forever. It feels like our sons went to Boy Scouts together, and neither one of us knew we were into the paranormal during that time because I still kept it quiet. And then my mom's like, she's like, Larry does paranormal too. And it was like, oh,
That's cool.
so
Yeah. Some people aren't into it, and that's okay.
Yep, but it's just so funny how the people who are, how many people don't talk about it
Hmm.
still. And I know we're getting better at it, but that's why I do this show, because I want to give people a voice. I want to be able to show people that they're not alone, and kind of also, educate, because there's so much misinformation out there.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yep. And Melody, I have not investigated Ocala. That is one location that I have not gotten to yet.
Hi,
Okay.
Melody.
And yep. And Pamela, I did see that comment earlier. Sorry, I skipped over it, but she had said the Loch Ness Monster is a myth, and she says she's Scottish. That's why she said that. Okay. And Lovely is also joining the show. So I'm having so much fun with this conversation. I love chatting with other people. And I don't have a schedule on what we talk about or anything like that, because people always ask me how I prepare for my show. And it's like, I just set up the StreamYard link and I go. So if there's anything that you want to talk about that I skip over, just let me know. I'm always more than happy
Awesome.
to talk about it. But one question I did have, since we were talking about UFOs and stuff like that, what are your thoughts on Skinwalker Ranch?
Oh my gosh. I have to say I love that show.
So do
I
I.
love that they have, so you can't think of the scientist that they have,
Mhm.
that isn't he an astrophysicist?
Yes, and I know his name, and
I can't think of it.
yep,
But I love that they are trying to back it up with hard proof,
right,
with science.
yep,
And to me, that's exactly what ghost hunting is too. You know,
mhm.
I grew up watching Ghost Hunters. I wanted to be on that show. I wrote in like when they had the contest. Like
When they did, what was it, Ghost Hunters University, or
it was a long time ago, but
yeah,
that was like one of my dreams back in the day, to be on Ghost Hunters. And because I want proof, I don't want to say, oh, there's a knock, oh, or
mhm,
here's an orb.
right,
Orbs are usually dust or a bug.
mhm,
Usually, I have
right,
seen some that are compelling. Um, Actually, one of my friends, Diane, made me a believer of orbs. She was capturing so many orbs, and I'd tell her, oh, it's dust. But then she would get kind of like an EVP in the background. And I thought, oh, maybe it's not. So
mhm,
everything that I try to investigate, in my own life, I want some kind of proof. I want there um, to be where there's nothing else that could happen. So I told
right,
you in the beginning, when I was in junior high, I had one of the most frightening experiences of my life. And it may not sound that big to everyone else, but to me, it was everything.
mhm,
It really started me down this path, I would say. When I was at my grandma's house, I heard something and I looked over and there was a latch, and it had the door. It was on the door that went into her antique shop, and it was just floating. It was going up and down really, really slowly in midair.
mhm,
Threw my plate, ran outside crying, and no one knew what happened. It was just my mom and my grandma there. My mom came outside. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm just crying. I didn't want to say anything, and I finally told her. We went back in the house, and my grandma said it was probably just the wind. And
mhm,
I yelled at my grandma. She was like another mama to me. I said, the wind is not going to make that latch go up and down very slowly, up and down. Like someone was
right,
doing that to get my attention, and they got it. And
mhm,
that was one of the biggest things. And I thought, I know for absolute sure that there is life after death. Someone on the other side is moving that latch.
mhm,
And ever since then, in school, I would check out library books on ghosts, paranormal. My last name is Greek, and
mhm,
they would call me Greek the Freak because I was always, I'd talk about my paranormal experiences at school, and I got made
mhm,
fun of, but I didn't care. I kept,
right,
persevering and checking out the books and trying to figure out what's going on. Why am I
mhm,
seeing this? And I know if I'm seeing it, other people are too.
right, yep. And if it was wind, you would think it would make like a rattling noise or would clang, with whatever the mechanism was, you know, and that's all things you think about hearsay. It's like I should have gone up to the door and rattled it to see if it would have made a noise.
Yeah. That and it didn't make any noise. And the thing is on the other side of that door, since it was part of the antique shop, it was nailed shut. And
Mhm,
then the latch was just on the other side, for an
right.
extra measure of protection. But that door, all the doors on the other side were nailed shut. So
Mhm.
absolutely was not the wind.
I know I have an answer for this one, but I want to see if you have an answer. Pamela wants to know, what do you think of people doing paranormal in their own homes? I did it before I entered into the spiritual world.
So
I think she means investigating her own home.
investigating or
Yeah.
readings or
Yeah.
um I don't know. I think that especially if you're alone, it may scare you. It could stir some things up potentially. I mean, I give readings from my home though. I give
Mhm.
psychic and mediumship readings from my own home in my office.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
think that a lot of people say you don't need to protect yourself. I myself, I pray to God. I surround myself in the white light of the Holy Spirit. I ask for only those who have the greatest good to come through,
Mhm.
and that's how I protect myself. So I
Okay.
think that if you have your own rituals like that, and
Mhm.
I'm firm believer in the power of sage,
Yep.
and and keep your things clean.
Right.
I don't really think that there's a problem. I probably would not be setting up REM pods in my own house though, because I think that I
Mhm.
would freak myself out.
Right. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer. I mean, and everyone can do what they want to do because I'm not saying you can't investigate your own home, but I've always told people it's best to find someone else to investigate it so you can get an outside perspective because you're already freaked out. You're already, you either already have a predetermined answer you want, but we have a rule in our house, and my entire paranormal team is my family. So it's my husband, my son, and I. So we all do it. And we have the house protected with crystals throughout the whole place. Sage when I clean. I use cascarilla and, soapy water when we wash the floors and a whole bunch of different stuff. But we even won't test equipment in our house. We were doing an event, and I don't use spirit boxes except for we were doing an event where the person requested we had one. So we ordered one, and we're like, how do we know, we don't want to look like idiots fumbling with this thing at an event because we've never used it before. So we went to a park
Oh
to
yeah.
try it out because we're like, we're not opening this up in our own home.
No.
It's not happening.
And have you seen the Boo Buddy, the teddy
Yes.
bear?
Yep.
Have you used one?
No.
It looks terrifying, but I am intrigued. So I'm going to be looking into that. I may or may not get one, but
Right. Yep.
it seems
Yeah.
like a
No.
good tool. I was already thinking, I'm like, well, if I had one, I would have to get it in a box and like keep it in my garage. It would not be in the house because I
Yep.
don't want things talking.
Yeah, no, we typically use non-tech tools. So pendulums, dowsing rods. People always laugh at me, but I use fidget spinners
Oh, I
because
never thought of
they
that.
spin freely. And
Yeah.
so we have a whole bunch of light up ones that will light up in the dark and stuff like that. So we
Oh.
use those, and it's what we prefer to use, but we don't even test those out in our own home either.
Mhm.
We'll go outside. We have a little bit of a tree lined forest just past our back patio. We'll go there to, test it out. We'll go to a park, or we'll wait till we go to a building to practice. But yeah, it's, people always ask me that all the time. Well, don't you use your pendulum and your pendulum boards and stuff like that? And I'm like, not in my own home.
Mm-mm. Absolutely not.
Not to communicate with spirits. I do use the pendulums like to test to see if I'm able to spin it, with my mind and stuff like that. But as far as, talking to the spirits, I don't use anything like that in my home. But yeah, that's just our rule. But, I know people who do it all the time, and, hey, because my co-host Wednesday nights, he has, he's always doing stuff in his own home. So it's interesting. Yeah, how everyone has so many different experiences. But Pamela does say she did it because she doesn't get scared. She uses crystals and candles for protection, and toy robots are great. Yes. Kids' toys are fantastic for, trigger objects and getting interaction.
So I had one talk. I had a stove, a little kid's kitchen playset. When she was probably year and a half old, and the little microwave kept dinging, and I had to have a talk with spirit. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, it was fixing to go outside and get burned. And that's just my own personal preference. And it's not that I'm scared really of anything negative because I know I have spirit in my house. Sometimes I see them, but I don't want to. It's kind of like they're in their world, I'm in mine, and we don't need to coexist all the time where I see them.
Right. Yep.
Right. And I definitely don't do talking toys in my home, especially ones without batteries. So
Right. Yeah, it's funny because it's like one time we had I called the spirit George, and we're so protected that only positive spirits can come in. So I mean, if they're positive, they're more than welcome to come in and make their presence known and say hi. But it was George, and he started smoking a cigar in the house. And I double checked to make sure it wasn't someone outside or anything coming through. And we don't smoke. We've never, let alone we didn't smoke cigars. So it was like, I just said, I'm like, dang it, George, I don't allow smoking in the house. And it was like instant. It wasn't like it slowly faded away. It was just instant gone. And I'm
wow,
like, thank you.
that's funny.
Yeah, they know I put my foot down. If you're going to be here, I have rules.
And you have to. That's how I look at it. You have
Yep.
to set boundaries and tell spirit what they can do and how you feel about it.
Yep, exactly. And Anton, he actually follows a whole bunch of my other stuff that I do and other shows that I've been on. So welcome to the show, Anton. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so I know we had talked a little bit about Skinwalker Ranch, but a couple of years ago, I had an Egyptian archaeologist on my show to talk about ancient aliens and his paranormal experiences in the pyramids, because he had several from doing the tours out in Egypt. And the one thing that he did talk about is how he personally doesn't believe in the ancient Egyptian, ancient alien theory. But what are your thoughts on that?
Once again, I love anything Egyptian,
Mhm.
anything. Um, do I believe in the ancient aliens? I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I kind of lean towards not, but of course, I still watch the show.
Right.
I mean, for George's hair, if nothing else, I still, it's one of those things where, like Skinwalker Ranch, I can put it on the background and clean up.
Mhm.
I do find some of the theories fascinating, and some of them I agree with, and some of them not. It's more for entertainment for me.
Mhm.
But everything Egyptian fascinates me. How
Mhm.
how the pyramids were built, and the just the ornate decorations, the animals that were there at the time of the pyramids blows my
Right.
mind.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, there's no hippos there now.
Right.
And, I think that's really cool. Just
Mhm.
it was just a different time, very magical to me.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it would have been, it's all desert now, but could you imagine being there with like the river flowing and, the
No.
trees, the palm trees swaying in the air?
And most people they don't see that side. They don't
Mhm.
think of
Yep.
that. And it was a
Yeah.
very different place. It looks very alien now. It's out of
Mhm.
place.
Right.
Almost
Yep.
like it was just picked up and put in the desert.
Right. Yeah. It's very, very interesting. And it's one of those things where my dad got to go to Egypt when he was in the Navy. And I just, wish things were better in the world, because I just don't know. Even the tour guide that
Mhm.
I had talked to, he says, if you're American, don't come here
Yeah.
right now.
I had the whole book with
Mhm.
Dr. Zahi Hawass, and there was
Mhm.
the river cruise. And
Yep.
I'm fortunate I live close to Houston, and so whenever I did get to see King Tut's exhibit, and I went
Mhm.
last year to one of the exhibits. They have another one on now, and
Mhm.
I can't wait to go see that. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
that in a lot of things, even with hauntings, right?
Mhm.
Things are out of place. Things are picked up, and you're seeing them from a different point of view than
Mhm.
how they actually were.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember in high school, I loved that King Tut exhibit. It was at the
Mhm.
Field Museum in Chicago for several months. And they actually built a pyramid in the museum to show what it was, it was really cool. I like that was one of my favorite exhibits that they ever had.
That's so cool. I think the one that's going on now, I think that's what they've kind of done, and they have the different chambers of the tomb that you walk through.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's
I'm
real
excited to
interesting.
go.
So if you're ever in an area and you get to see that, go see it. Pamela wants to know, do you believe if two mirrors are facing each other, can they create a portal?
I have never actually thought of that.
Mhm.
I don't have any mirrors that face each other that I know of, so nothing that I've ever come across. Um, I do have one mirror in my house, and I'm contemplating. It's an old antique mirror from the 1800s that my aunt gave me, and I've been contemplating. I'm like, do I need to cover this? Do I need to take it down? There's something a little off about it, and it's not
Mhm.
really a bad feeling. And it's been hanging up for probably 2 years now. And just a couple of months ago, I was thinking, there might be something off with this mirror. So
Mhm.
I don't know
Yeah.
that necessarily that would create a portal. I do believe in
Right.
portals. I
Mhm.
have one in my bathroom that's sometimes open.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It's always, I found one in the bath in several clients' homes in the bathroom.
in the
I think it's because
bathroom,
of the water flow.
absolutely. People
Yeah.
ask me a lot there, and I was just talking to a gentleman last week, and he was asking me a bunch of questions, and
Mhm.
um, because this is one of my favorite things to talk about, paranormal stuff, right? And we were on the phone, and he said, I was giving my newborn infant a bath, and oh my gosh, he was picking up all this information. And I said, I tell you, some of the best stuff I get, I'll be at the kitchen sink washing my hands, not a care in the world, and things come to me, or taking a bath, spirit will come.
Mhm.
I just tell them, avert your eyes. And after just a few weeks after my mom passed away, it was one of those, in the middle of the night, I got up to use the restroom, and where you try to keep your eyes closed so you don't wake up.
Mhm.
So all the
Right.
lights are off and my eyes are, barely open. And when I came out of the water closet, it's like almost I hit a brick wall, and I backed up and that's where the portal is in my bathroom. It's right there. Because I've seen things so many times in that area, but there was like a solid figure, and I could differentiate between the darkness of the bathroom, and I bounced, and it didn't scare me. But that's the thing I have found too. And how I told you before the show started, my experiences in other restrooms, I do feel that it's from the water flow. It's just really conductive.
Yep. Yeah, I wrote that in my Vegas book. It was funny because every hotel I was writing about, there was hauntings in the bathroom. So finally, in one of the chapters, I'm like, why are the bathrooms always haunted? And then I covered that. So, but real quick, getting back to the mirrors facing each other, we did have a case. I wish I could replicate it, but I haven't been able to replicate it. But it was the daughter's bedroom. She had a little vanity makeup stand, and then she had her dresser mirror, and they were facing each other. And we were doing the investigation in the room, and that was where most of the activity was. And during the EVP question and doing the different things that we were doing, all of a sudden the smaller mirror just started shaking. And it was like, so we tilted it sideways a little bit and it stopped. So, but we haven't been able to replicate that ever since.
That's interesting.
Yes.
So do you know if one of them was an antique, if it was older, or were they both new?
They both look newer. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've
never really thought of it.
Yeah, it was interesting. And we didn't think of it either when we walked in, and someone pointed it out when the mirror was shaking. They're like, wait, there's two mirrors pointing to each other. And the minute we moved it just a little bit, it stopped. So something was happening there, and we don't know. And we were going to go back and do another investigation, but she sold her home.
I wonder why.
I know. And that was the second time we were there. So we had already been there twice trying to get her answers. But Mike is joining us. Oh, hello, Mike, and hello, Lee.
Hi.
Lee, glad you followed me over here from WLTK. Glad to have you here. And Pamela says, water only affects me every time in the kitchen. I have to run to the loo. Sorry, couldn't resist. And Lisa, she came back from the restroom at night and saw a shadow figure growing. I screamed and hit it. It screamed back and then turned into Todd. Todd was our old show producer. I think that's the Todd you're talking about. If not, let me know. And then antique mirrors are fabulous. Some do have attachments. Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's one thing I miss. I wish I would have seen when I was in Vegas is Bela Lugosi's mirror at Zach's museum.
Wow.
Yeah, I never got to see that, but I'm actually going back to Vegas hopefully next year, so we'll be able to check that out hopefully. Yep. Oh no, her guy Todd. Okay, sorry, I didn't know your guy was Todd Lee. But it would have been funny if it was the other Todd too. So he would have laughed at that. So do you have any projects that you're working on right now, or anything that you can share?
I always have projects in the works. Right now I am working on something big for myself. It's big to me. And I'm midstream in a couple of things that I can't talk about. Hopefully I'll have a book in the next year. Been thinking about that for the last several years, and also maybe some tarot cards, something like that. So that's all.
Be cool. I wouldn't know where to begin to design tarot cards.
It's a lot of work, but I may lean towards something else, somewhere in that genre: tarot cards, oracle cards.
Yeah. No, I can write stories all day long, but when it comes to anything artistic, forget it.
Oh, I love art. I love to draw. I love making collages, painting. So that comes natural to me.
Yeah, no, because I was majoring in photography in college, I had to take an art class, and just to complete the major. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to take an art class, but I did. And the teacher at the end of the class told me, I'm giving you an A because you showed up every day and you tried, not because you have talent. And I'm like, nice. I appreciate that.
That's how I feel about PE, right? I could never do a pull-up, and I'm like, my mother asked the PE teacher once, she's like, does she show up every day? And they said yes. And does she dress out? Yes.
Mhm.
Does she try? Yes. Okay. You
Yep.
can't give a kid anything less than an A if they do that, right? Because not everyone is um, physically a sportsman, right?
Mhm. Yeah, but it was just so funny. It was like, okay, well, I appreciated his honesty. It's like, and I knew I mean, our final art project was to take an ordinary item and make it look fantastic. So I drew something that was easy because it was ruler based. So I drew an outlet, and then instead of the outlet holes, I drew curtains.
How funny. I do like the idea of the outlet. That sounds
Yeah,
really cool.
and that was my final project. But
You
you know,
tried.
it was a lot of fun. Oh, just like here. Oh, Lee says with her algebra teacher, but he gave her a D, but he passed her. Uh, yeah, when I homeschooled my son, we did it virtually through virtual schools. But yeah, I didn't touch math and I didn't art. I was like, okay, you got to do what you got to do. I was there for reading and everything else, reading and history.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we still have a few minutes. So if anyone has any questions whatsoever, please let us know. And sticking to the strange locations, strange and odd locations, what are your thoughts on the different triangles that we have throughout the world? The Bermuda Triangle, Alaska Triangle, and the Nevada Triangle.
I do think that there are a lot of, especially the Bermuda Triangle. I grew up on that one, right? Every single show that would come on, I would be watching it.
Yep.
And I think that there are so many, there's just way too many occurrences at the Bermuda Triangle
Mhm.
to dismiss.
Yep.
I absolutely love watching all of the shows on that also. I don't know. I think it would be interesting. When I went to the Bahamas, I wanted to go to Bimini, but I did not make it there. Just once again, so much history. And just like in Florida with the Keys,
Mhm.
there's so
Yeah.
much history.
Yeah.
Do I think that there's a lot of residual energy and
Mhm.
not necessarily intelligent hauntings all the time, but especially residual energy. Wherever you have emotions of
Mhm.
those who are living and those who are on the other side, you're going to have interference, I guess you
Right.
would say.
Yeah.
You're going to have, things that happen that you can't explain.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. And from where we're at, we're a 2-hour boat ride from Key West. So
Hmm.
instead of driving we can take a boat and we're there quicker.
Cool. That is really
You don't
cool.
think about that with the Keys that they come this far west, but you know they come all the way over here, and it's we've been needing to get over there. There's a lot of interesting history and activity that's over there. So
I
yeah,
want to go back.
that's
I've only been a couple of times to the Keys, but
mhm,
I do want to get down there again.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I always joke that the Bermuda Triangle explains a lot of our Florida man stories that we get down here, because it's like whenever there's something crazy, it's Florida man did it.
There you go. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yep. And then the Nevada Triangle, I remember we were filming a TV pilot and they had asked us about it. And we're like, you know, all of us were like, what? Because we hadn't heard of it before. So
I had not
meanwhile,
heard of that.
yeah, when we're off camera, we're all on our phones Googling it so we can answer the question. But it actually turns out to where it's south of Vegas, almost like in the Nelson Searchlight area. Then it goes up past Area 51 and then straight over to just a couple miles into California.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that includes like Goldfield, Gold Point, some of the most haunted locations in the state. So it's interesting. So
It is.
mhm, yeah, but yeah, that was funny because they're like, "What's your thoughts on the Bermuda Triangle fueling the paranormal activity here in Goldfield?" And we're all like, "What?"
So one of the things that I've come to the conclusion of, just like when I go into a house and someone says, "Oh, is it haunted?" And like I told you before the show started, I said I always thought I grew up in a haunted house.
Hmm.
I thought my grandma's house was haunted. Um, but I think it's me. It's just because I'm sensitive to those energies. And I think that probably literally every place that we can go, if we're
Hmm.
looking for spirit, if we're looking for activity, we're going to find it.
Oh
As
yeah,
long as we're looking for it,
right.
you know,
Yep.
spirit's
Yeah.
not going to not show up unless they absolutely don't want to have anything to do with you, but they're
Right.
there. Think of all
Yeah.
the countless lives, people who have breathed the same air as us.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah.
It's just a lot.
They're there.
And energy
They're
can't
there.
be destroyed, right?
Right.
That's what they
Yeah.
say. Energy can't be destroyed. So that's what I explain to people when I communicate with spirit, that
Hmm.
even after we pass from this side, our energy, our soul is still alive on the other side.
Yep. Yeah. It's all about being patient. Okay. Anton wants to know if you have any appearance scheduled in Texas.
I don't right now. I only do readings via Zoom or telephone. I go live on Facebook right now,
Mhm.
and that's the extent for the rest of the year right now. I'm kind of winding down.
And Lee, we did talk a little bit about Skinwalker Ranch earlier in the show. I know you joined a little bit later on, but if you catch the replay later on, you can see that as well. And then good morning, Rich. I'm actually looking forward to having you on the show next week. So that is going to be a fantastic show as well. And then Irene, good evening, ladies. I'm assuming you are on the other side of the world from us. So good evening. I hope you had a great day. And then Mike, I saw you pop in earlier and say hi. Sorry I didn't catch that, but I'm sorry you have to go, but we're almost done with the show anyway. So if you miss anything, you could always catch the replay, and hopefully I see you next week. So before we go, where can people find you if they want to get a reading, talk to you, or have any questions?
Awesome. My website is daughterwithspirit.com. I'm on all those handles on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. You can find me there. Also, I do go live on Facebook, Daughter with Spirit, psychic medium Jennifer Newman, and I give free readings on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I post messages, so there may be one waiting for you.
Okay, perfect. And also, you will be on our show, as long as I've confirmed that correctly, in the
Yes.
Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Tune in to Ghost Education 101. We are going to have a panel of psychics and mediums to be doing different not readings, but they're going to be talking about how they develop their skills as well as how they help clients. And we're going to focus also on residential cases and helping clients through that as well. So, and Irene says she's in Tokyo, and Anton says he's a fellow Texan.
Oh, awesome. Howdy.
Yep. And Lee, I missed you too. I'm glad you were able to find the show, but I am going to give all the replay links real quick before we head out. You can follow the show on Facebook at Exploring the Paranormal Show. It is also aired live on Parallax TV and Things Network on Tuesday mornings from 11 to noon. The show changed. It used to be from 10 to noon. So we're doing that. And next week, like I mentioned, I will be having Rich joining me from Eli Roth Presents Legion of Exorcists. So that is going to be a fantastic show. I have tons of questions already for him, and I've had people sending in questions for that one. And then mark your calendars for November 21st. I have Diet Renee joining me to talk about different psychic abilities as well. And then upcoming guests for the rest of the year include Chris Allen, Alex Matsu, and C.L. Thomas. So we have a long list of schedules coming up. And then the last 2 weeks of December, I am taking off, and I have an even just as fabulous 2024 planned for all of us. So I hope everyone has a great day. And do you have anything else you want to add before we cut it?
I don't, but thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you and all of your guests. I loved it. I just absolutely love to talk about the paranormal.
Oh,
So this was right up my alley.
I know. Thank you. And you and I are going to have to keep in contact, because
No.
I'm sure I'll have you on the show again. I might even book you, because I'm already booking in the summer of next year. So
Awesome.
I might already get you booked so we can talk about and see what's happening next in your life. So again,
Sounds great.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoy it. If you're watching the replay, don't be afraid to ask your questions in the replay. We will make sure we get them answered to you, and I will be sharing the replay link as well as the different ways to get in contact with Jennifer on the Facebook page, so you guys have all that in one spot. So again, we will see you next week, and you guys have a great week and a weekend. Talk to you soon.